Gary Rosenbush, my ag teacher, is over leaning against the wall. Oh my goodness. Forgive me to the press for being a little less businesslike than I probably should be, but it is really full circle for me to be able to come back here. We were thinking, I don't think I've been to a National FFA Convention since I was a state FFA officer, and that was 1990, 1991. So 35 years later, to be here with those tens of thousands of future farmers and future leaders that were there, with all the amazing ag teachers represented by Mr. Rosenbush, and the life-changing work that those ag teachers do, to stand on the stage as the 33rd Secretary of Agriculture, something that, was never part of my plan, but God and Donald Trump sometimes have different plans than often you have for yourself, but I couldn't be more grateful for this opportunity. A couple of quick top lines, and then I'll certainly open it up. The first is this: about 12 hours ago, President Trump struck an amazing deal with Xi Jinping in Asia. Obviously, we have been struggling in the farm economy over the last number of years, perhaps one of the worst farm economies in any of our lifetimes, especially for our row croppers. So really being hyper-focused on that. This president had a vision on Liberation Day in April of this year. He laid it out for all of America and for the world, that no longer would America bow at the altar of other countries' trade and tariff regimes, that instead we are the United States of America, and we will drive that train wherever we believe and however we believe it is best for our own country. The reason that's important is, I believe, and certainly what I've seen over the last 9 or 10 months since I've been in office, is that no one benefits more from this president's vision and his relentless 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week work to realign the world economy around America than our agriculture producers and our farmers and our ranchers. So I think we'll be seeing and moving around the corner to a new day for ag as all of these deals have been struck. So I think that's the first thing I want to mention is how proud I am of this president, not just the deal with China that was struck last night, but also many of the deals that were struck over the last week over in Asia, in addition to the UK, the EU, Australia, Japan, Vietnam. I mean, it's just remarkable what's happening across the world. The second thing that I want to say is that we remain very committed to our farmers and our ranchers. Agriculture is the fabric with which this country has been woven over 249 years. I think I'm probably a little bit different than your normal Secretary of Agriculture in that working so hard to tell the story of rural America and farmers and what it is that is necessary, not just to preserve that way of life, which is certainly paramount, but to be able to feed and fuel and clothe our country. It is a national security issue, and I think that's very important. And then the third thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up for any questions, is that we really are at a crossroads in America, and especially for our producers. And so we are working every day as we marry the efforts between making America healthy again and making agriculture great again, and ensuring that that partnership and that marriage between Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Mehmet Oz and Dr. McCary and all of the great leaders over at HHS, that we ensure that we're preserving and protecting American farmers and ranchers while at the same time opening up a whole new age. And we've got a chronic obesity, chronic disease in this country. The opportunity for new and younger farmers to get in, to have more locally produced food, I think is an incredibly exciting time for agriculture. It is not something we should be afraid of or walking away from. We will continue to fight and preserve for what makes agriculture great, but moving into this new era, I just couldn't be more excited. So with that, I am so happy to be here at the National FFA Convention. I'll take any questions. Yes, ma'am. I'll be there Monday.
Could you kind of explain to our cattlemen where you're seeing this process going and what it's going to mean for them here in the United States?
Yeah, thank you. And will you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, Susan Littlefield, the American Ag Network.
That's right, Susan. Great to see you again. So I think it's no surprise to everyone in the audience that we are facing a potential crisis with our animal livestock industry with the screwworm. to remind everyone that, by the way, it's not, explaining this to the president's always fun. He's like, what does that worm look like? And I say, well, it's actually a fly that lays eggs. It's larvae. It's very confusing. But the screwworm, after devastating the American livestock industry in the 1950s and 1960s, took more than a decade to get back out in front of it. We thought it had been eradicated, had moved all the way back down into South America, and has slowly been creeping up. I'll try not to get too political, but it is a shame that the last administration did not do more. We have been working really hard and finding the money to build new facilities, to hire new staffers, to have USDA deployed on the ground in Mexico. And the reason is this, that when I started in this role, and I was sworn in on February 13th earlier this year, the screwworm was inching up, but it was about 1,000 miles away from the Texas border, which is the closest border to the parasite. And now, 9 or 10 months later, just a few weeks ago, we had one that was identified 70 miles from the Texas border. So we obviously take this incredibly seriously. We released a 5-point plan. I've been down to the border now, I think 2 or 3 different times, announcing a new sterile fly facility. This government, this White House, and approved by the president, by the way, has identified $1 billion to fight this parasite and to keep it out of our country. And I hope that's not lost on anyone at a time where we are working to cut government and return power to the people and find efficiencies and not spend as much of the taxpayer dollars. A $1 billion effort is a significant one. So we will continue the conversations. We are not there yet. Obviously, Mexico, there's about 250,000 head of cattle waiting to move over, but I am not convinced yet that we have this under control. And as tough as it is, and as it's putting a lot of our cattlemen, understandably, they have been very supportive of me on this, though, but putting a lot of them in a tough spot. Our number one biggest priority is to protect the herd that we have in America, which is already at a 75-year low. So we're getting closer. I've been encouraged by an unprecedented partnership with Secretary Julio Bertigué, who is the Mexico Secretary of Ag. I'm meeting with the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, on Monday morning about this very issue. Not to make news here, but that probably will make news. We couldn't take it more seriously. We understand what's at stake for everyone, but we're going to make sure the American cattlemen are protected and our cattle herd. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yes.
Benefits. Obviously, a lot of concerns with those not being distributed on November 1st because of the shutdown. Lots of people here in Indiana are affected by that. What are the efforts right now that the USDA is doing to try to acquire funding for that? And as a state here in Indiana, is there anything that they can do to try to make sure that this problem is addressed?
I think it's really important, and I said I wasn't going to get political, but now I'm going to have to get political, so my apologies to everyone. But it's an important question, and we are basically 24 hours, 36 hours away from all those benefits being cut off. We need to level set this first. In my work, my 20 plus, 30 plus years of work in policy and government on the private sector, and then of course I was in the first Trump term as his domestic policy chief, I have never seen the Democrats be so irrational and irresponsible. It makes no sense to me. And listen, we can have varying degrees of differences of opinion. It is Washington. I do work for Donald Trump. I understand that. But for the Democrats to vote 13 times to keep the government closed, and y'all, the way this normally works is when you get this continuing resolution to keep the government going, the Republicans come with a list of, we must have this. The Democrats come with a list of, no, we must have this. And then you negotiate, and then you meet in the middle, and then the government opens. Or you just, that was what happened 11 times previously, everyone just signs the continuing resolution is what it's called, and the government continues. This is how it normally works. But the Democrats have decided that spending $200 million for illegal alien health care, spending $50 million for supporting, hope I don't offend anyone in here, but very liberal, left-leaning government-supported media, spending $5 million to educate on LGBTQI, I don't even know what the I means, but LGBTQI in the Balkans. I mean, this is on their wish list, and they are refusing to open the government until the Republicans agree to this. This is absolute insanity. It makes zero sense. I said October 10th. I said again October 24th. We do not have the funds to go into November with SNAP. We don't have the $9.2 billion. We've already bubblegummed this deal. We've duct taped this deal. We've band-aided this deal. We've gotten a little bit out the door, but it ends on November 1st. And again, I think this morning they had another vote. I'm flying to Washington tonight to do the press conference with Mike Johnson, our Speaker of the House, in the morning to keep talking about this. This is not hard. Vote to open the government. The Democrat-leaning labor unions are calling for the government to open. The Washington Post is calling for the government to open. This is, you guys live out here in the middle of the country, you probably don't know this, but the Washington Post is crazy anti-Donald Trump and our policy agenda. So it's time to open the government, and we've got to do that. In the meantime, you've got about 42 million people that starting tomorrow are not going to receive their food stamps. Of those 42 million, you know, there's probably some in there that are going to be okay, but there is a significant number that are most vulnerable, that rely on this benefit to be able to feed their family. So we're continuing to work with governors. Some governors have stepped in the gap. Others say they can't, but the USDA does not have the money to continue the program. Thank you. Sorry that was a long-winded answer, but it's an important one. Good. Hello. Yes.
President Trump here recently has said that he wants to lower beef prices, retail prices for consumers, and is seeking possibly to import beef from Argentina. I've spoken with Colin Woodall. He's the president and CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. He says he's had conversations with you and your office and with the White House and lawmakers. He and other cattle producers are saying that they're unhappy with this proposal to bring in beef from Argentina. What say you in terms of that particular plan to offset beef prices here in the U.S.?
Well, thanks for bringing that up. A couple of important points on this. Every year, Americans consume about 12 million metric tons of beef. 12 million metric tons, which I know is mind-numbing to all of us. 10 million metric tons of beef is produced in America, good American beef, the best in the world. We do it the best in the world, a lot of it from this part of the country. Of the 12 million we consume, 2 million we import every year. So the idea, and most of that is imported to mix in for ground beef, sort of the lower cost beef for those who can't afford a $30 or a $50 or a $70 steak. And so what the president was talking about was nothing much different from what we have done for a really long time. Currently, we import about 20,000 metric tons from Argentina, so 20,000 of the 12 million, so a very small amount. The president was talking about going to 40 or 60 or 80,000 metric tons. Again, a very small amount of the full 12 million, even a small amount of the 2 million we already import. When you put that up against the fact that we have closed the ports, we have no crossing of live cattle in the last almost 6 or so months. The tariffs, the 50% tariffs on Brazil, we've seen a huge slowing down of product from Brazil. So what the president was talking about in terms of Argentina doesn't even make up for what we haven't gotten across in the last few months. I say all of that because, on the one hand, because I think that the reaction, if people had understood the facts and understood that the president has a commitment that he made to secure the border and bring the cost of groceries down, he's working really hard to fulfill that promise. But the flip side, I've said this too, I understand the frustration of the cattlemen. We are at a 75-year low for our cattle herd. These guys have not made money, have not been able to put a new roof on their barn, have not been able to buy a new truck in a decade or so. That this moment in time was allowing them, and that's an unfortunate part of agriculture and producers, is it's very boom and bust. We're in boom right now for the cattlemen, and so I think they, when they heard that, felt very threatened by it and thought, you know, well, we need to rebuild our herds. How are we going to do that now if there's going to be a flood of beef imported from Argentina? So we released a plan last week, a 5-point plan on how to rebuild the herds, how to support our cattlemen. We're opening up 5 million acres of Forest Service land, USDA land, and interior land for very low-cost lease for our ranchers to have an additional opportunity to build their herds. We are putting a ton of money into smaller processing plants around the country so that you've got a kind of a deregulation, if you will, more competition from the processors, and that's really important. USDA is going to be launching a $100 million ad campaign in January. Buy American Beef, product of the USA. I feel very bullish. I'm very encouraged and excited for our cattlemen, but we are in a moment in time that for a lot of reasons, there's some frustration out there, but I feel good on the direction we're going. So thank you for that.
Hello, I'm Anna from FFA Live. First of all, thank you so much for being here at National Convention. It means a lot to the FFA. And thank you for your commitment to agriculture. You were once an FFA member yourself, so what advice would you give to students who are wondering how they can turn their agricultural education experiences into leadership roles beyond the classroom?
Oh, Anna, that is such a beautiful. Where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota.
From Minnesota, a great state. It's where I spent my summers. So 3 things. I'll be quick. First is that there has never been a more important time for agriculture than right now. And that is somewhat counterintuitive to some because back at the beginning of the country, 95% of the population were farmers and ranchers. Today, less than 2% are. But that makes it even more important for the FFA and the students of the FFA to lean in, to get involved, and to tell our story. We can't have an America without national security. We can't have national security without being able to feed ourselves. That's the first thing. The second thing I will say, and what Mr. Rosenbush taught me and what the FFA taught me, is that anything is possible. It doesn't matter what small town you're from, whether you're raised by a single parent, what color your skin is, what bathroom, what gender you are, what bathroom you use, and there are only 2. None of that matters. What matters is that this is the United States of America, and anyone can achieve anything with hard work and dreaming big. That would be the second thing. And the third thing is what I talked about from the stage, that we're all called to meet our moment, that God has his hand on all of us, and that we are urged and called and inspired and encouraged every day to meet that moment, to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to work hard for a righteous goal, and to do everything we can to fight for what we believe is right. And there's no youth organization in the world that does that better than the National FFA and all the FFA organizations around this country. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I'm turning into my boss. Right, the president starts walking away and people yell questions and he comes back. All right, we'll do one more back there too. This is such a great story. The president had his vision. He traveled across the country. He was resolute that we've got to drain the swamp, return the power to the people. What that really means is getting all of these tens of thousands of federal government employees out of Washington. And nowhere is that more pertinent than the USDA. We serve the farmers and the ag community. Why do we have thousands and thousands of people in Washington who've never stepped foot on a farm before? So we started this process at the very beginning when I was announced, and announced 5 new hubs where the USDA headquarters are moving to. Of course, Indianapolis, Indiana is the first, Kansas City, Missouri, Raleigh, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho, and Fort Collins, Colorado. Blue and red states, blue and red cities, but really wanted to move out. Indianapolis and Indiana, which most of you probably know, the research capability here, you're so close to all these amazing institutions. You have significant ag industry here. You're in the middle of the country. 30 minutes from here, I was on a soybean and corn farm before I came here this morning, and I was harvesting. I was driving the combine, and that is what the vision is for USDA. How do we get out of Washington and get where we can better serve the American people? So I couldn't be more excited, and I'll be here a lot because of that. So thank you. All right, one more. Just because I like your Aggie maroon shirt, for the record. Yes, you're maroon. I don't want to get ahead of where the court systems are going. I think that's really important to see how that plays out. There's been a lot of discussion. USDA does have an emergency fund, but doesn't come close to covering the $9.2 billion. And legally, we don't even think we can tap it according to the statute on that. And even if we could, we're going to be back at this same conversation in 2 weeks when it runs out again. I mean, it never ends with the left and the Democrats. They have to come to the table. They have to open the government. We've got to get these benefits out to the American people. And I feel certain that once the government opens, we'll be moving right away. Thank you all so much. Thank you. We'll be announcing probably in the next 30 to 60 days the next step. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you all.